Hi there! Today we've got some strategies for getting your thoughts out of your head and into your writing. I guess I've always been a little bit surprised by how much worse my drawings are than the things that I can imagine in my head. In my mind's eye, I can see wonderful things with fantastic levels of detail, but something happens when I grab a pencil and try to create what I visualized. A lot gets lost in the translation from my mind to my hand and then to the paper. And I know that a similar thing can happen for people when it comes to writing. People know what they want to say, but then it just doesn't come out quite the right way when it comes time to actually write it. And that can become awfully frustrating. Luckily, I think it can be much easier to translate your thoughts into writing than it is to translate a mental picture into a drawing. For one, even if you don't consider yourself a great writer, you already know a lot about putting your thoughts into words. We just need to find a way to help you to leverage the skills that you already have whenever you end up struggling with a writing task. And that's what we're here to talk about today. If you ever feel like there's something blocking your thoughts on their way to the page, then I've got some suggestions to help you to get around that blockage and to make sure that your thoughts are accurately represented in your writing. Of course, if this is the sort of thing that sounds interesting to you, I hope you'll subscribe. There's plenty more where this is coming from, and I'm sure you'll find other good insights and suggestions that will help you to polish your writing and sharpen your rhetorical skills. But anyway, here are 4 ways to make sure that you're actually getting your thoughts out of your head and into your writing. Have you ever really listened to people who are just talking? When we speak naturally, the things we say are full of broken sentences, hesitations, false starts, rephrasings, repetitions, likes, and ums, and those things can attract a lot of negative attention in a speech class, but when it comes to actual conversations, people hardly even notice them at all. That's because it's perfectly natural to need multiple attempts to get your thoughts out of your head in a way that makes sense. If you start saying something to your friend and then have to start your sentence over because you didn't quite say what you wanted to, probably nobody is going to bat an eye. That's just how talking works. Of course, all of that very natural messiness that shows up in speech isn't visible in writing, but that doesn't mean that your written sentences have to come out perfectly on the first try. So take the pressure away and just write everything that's in your head, anything that comes to mind. Spill it all out in your word processor or in your journal or wherever you're writing. Even if you end up writing the same sentence in a few different ways or give up on a sentence halfway through, it doesn't matter. Write everything, even if it's garbage nonsense. If you just write everything and dump your thoughts onto the page, then there's a very good chance that the meaning that you want to express is somewhere on that paper in all of that mess. You just have to find it. And the truth is that finding the right sentence on a messy page can be a lot easier than writing the right sentence on a blank page. If you're struggling to find the words for your ideas, and you have 7 variations of the same sentence, then you can look them over and just pick the one that represents your thoughts in the best way. Or you can take parts from one sentence and parts from another and fit them together into a sentence that actually says what you want your audience to understand. And let me tell you, it is so much easier to cut 12 pages of messy writing down to a strong 6-page essay than it is to write a good essay from scratch. When you have a blank page and you're pressuring yourself to write one perfect sentence after another, you're going to struggle. But when you set yourself free to write as messily as you probably speak, then all you have to do is get rid of all the writing that doesn't properly communicate your point. And deleting bad sentences is so much easier than writing amazing sentences on your first try. I've talked before about an experience that I've had pretty often. A student will come into my office with an essay that is hard to read or understand. They've spent a long time writing their draft, but it just isn't doing their thoughts justice. Somewhere along the lines, their thoughts have gotten stuck on the way from their brain to the page. In those moments, I like to set the paper aside and ask my students to explain what they actually mean to say. Without fail, they explain their ideas in beautiful and interesting and perfectly clear terms. They say they're having so much trouble getting their thoughts out, but then they have no trouble at all saying those thoughts out loud. After they finish explaining their thoughts, I always say that the things that they explained are what should go into the paper. And more often than you might think, my students often look at me with a bit of surprise, as if to say, wait, you mean I can just write it the way I explained it? Yes, you totally can, and you should, because frankly, you explained it way better than you wrote it. But I understand why those students are so surprised. We have this idea that writing is serious and formal and full of rules, so it's natural to think that we can't just write things the way we say them. But that's nonsense. You can and you should write things just as you would say them. Some people like to say that writing and speaking are vastly different activities, but they're actually not that different, and the differences that do exist really only show up if you're trying to write the next great novel. For most people, in most situations, the gap between writing and speaking is much narrower, so there's really no good reason not to write things the way you would say them. So if you're struggling to get your thoughts out of your head and onto paper, then forget about getting them onto paper at all and just say them out loud. You can even record your voice if it's helpful and then write them down later. Now, you may decide to tweak what you say when you finally do write it down, but again, that's going to be a lot easier than coming up with perfect sentences from scratch. Even when you do feel like you have a decent piece of writing put together, it can still be a challenge to know for sure that your writers will understand what you mean for them to understand. It's something that I struggled with for a long time, and it is something that we've talked about before. So rather than just struggle in your own head and hope that you've got it right, ask someone. Find a reader and ask them to tell you how they understand what you've written. This suggestion is perhaps less useful for people who don't know where to start, but it can be a big help if you just don't know for sure that what you've written actually matches what you had in your head. That's why getting an outside opinion can be so helpful. It gives you access to a perspective on your writing that is independent from all of that extra noise in your brain. In other words, when you finally think you have your thoughts on paper, share them with someone and ask them to confirm it. Over the years, I've learned that readers have a habit of understanding my writing in unexpected ways, and each time a reader has pointed out a way that my writing has not reflected my thoughts accurately, I've learned something about how to make that gap between my thoughts and my writing much smaller. So share your writing with someone if you're able to and ask them how they understand it. Then tell them what you mean to say and see if they can't help you to revise your writing in order to make your points more transparently. Where the first two suggestions in this video are designed to help you get your thoughts out of your head in the first place, this one is designed to help you to confirm that your efforts have in fact been successful. The biggest hurdle for me when it comes to drawing what I can visualize is my lack of technical skill. I can imagine things, but I don't really have the mastery or technique to make very good use of that imagination. And a similar issue is at work when we struggle to get our thoughts out in writing. That is, it's possible that you know exactly what you want the world to know, but you just don't have the skills yet to pick the right words and then put them in the right order. And first of all, that's totally okay. There is plenty of time to develop those skills, but it is something to be aware of. Getting your thoughts out of your head and into writing can be difficult just because developing new skills is difficult. The only thing to do then is practice. Give yourself lots of opportunities to try putting your thoughts into writing without a lot of pressure. Write in a journal, send letters or emails to friends and family, start a blog. Every time you try to put your thoughts into writing, it will get a little easier. You can also read and study the work of writers that you admire, learn new words and practice using them, improve your knowledge of grammar, usage, punctuation, and style. Everything you learn will help you to write your thoughts more precisely. Just think of it, you'll have a much easier time telling somebody the exact color of paint you want if you know 500 words for different colors than if you only know 12. The more your technical skill improves, the more effectively you'll be able to write what you're actually thinking. And above all, just give yourself time. It might feel like you have to be an incomprehensibly amazing writer right now, but you don't. You just need to be a better writer today than you were yesterday, and practice is the only way to get there. So go get practicing and we'll see you again in the next video. In the meantime though, share your questions and comments below, especially if there's something you'd like us to talk about in the future. Like other videos on the channel, this one was inspired by one of your comments, so don't be shy about making requests. Anyhow, ciao for now and thanks for watching.